Our event is about to begin. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. This event is being recorded. Better Worlds Ahead is presented in partnership with Grist, Mother Jones, Rewiring America, and the Tishman Environment and Design Center at the New School, with support from the World Wildlife Fund, Dream.org, Concern Worldwide, Oatly, and NIA Capital. Please welcome your host, interdisciplinary artist and experiential futurist and world builder, Aisha Shillingford.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is so beautiful to see all of you. You know that feeling when you've been planning a party for a long time and then everyone starts to show up and you're like, oh wow, they're here. You know, this is real, this is happening. My name is Aisha. I'm an artist and experiential futurist and world builder and the artistic director of Intelligent Mischief, which is a creative studio that works to unleash the power of Black radical imagination to shape the future. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you here today to Better Worlds Ahead, Realizing Our Brighter Climate Futures. It is really such a joy to be with you all today to share this precious space and time dedicated to dreaming and imagining beautiful futures together. As many of us are participating in Climate Week, who's doing other Climate Week things? And the UN Summit of the Future. Is anyone doing UN Summit of the Future? A few of us. This is a really significant political moment, not just in our country, but around the world. And it feels really good to feel New York City filled with people who are dreaming and articulating bold and beautiful visions for our collective futures. Before I begin, I want to share and invite us to share our appreciation for Arturo O'Farril for his incredible musical offering. Arturo is going to be continuing to underscore and provide some sonic facilitation during the event today, and I'm really, really happy to be sharing the stage with him as we envision better futures together. I want to ground us as we begin in the wisdom of three of our shared ancestors, Grace Lee Boggs, Nina Simone, and Martin Luther King Jr. As I think about Grace Lee Boggs, I'm reminded especially of her reverberating question, what time is it on the clock of the world? As many of us can feel, is an extremely challenging time and certainly a humbling time, a time when what is being required of us is so huge that as individuals we cower in the face of it. It's a time that is asking so much of us physically and emotionally and spiritually and materially, but it's not a time for us to turn away. It's not a time for us to be afraid. As people who are standing in the breach, as it were, between the world as we know it and the world as it could be, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to dedicate some of our attention to the future and to orient towards that future with hope. And as the descendants of our ancestors and the ancestors of our descendants, it is our responsibility to orient towards the future with a sense of hope and courage, because our future generations demand it of us. So hopefully we're all here today because we agree that in order to navigate our current climate reality, we must imagine better climate futures. I'm really grateful that all of you have chosen to spend your time and energy imagining with us. Nina Simone. Nina Simone once said that an artist's duty is to reflect the times, and I hope as an artist that my work reflects these times as a period of an inevitable transition, a time when an old paradigm is crumbling and a new one is being born. But as many of our friends at places like Movement Generation have so wisely said, transition is inevitable, but justice is not. Because in times like these, times of transition, we find ourselves at the precipice of many different possible futures. And so in many ways, this moment also reminds me of the book by Martin Luther King Jr., Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? He wrote that book at the height of the white supremacist backlash against the advancements to our society that were cultivated by the civil rights movement. And in that book, he's contemplating a way forward towards his vision of a beloved community, multiracial, democratic, shared accountability, economic democracy, and he's contemplating this way forward even as regressive forces in society were determined to drag the nation into uncertainty and violence. So many of us feel the similar tension of this moment and the uncertainty it creates about our collective futures and that of our descendants. Every day we witness the ways in which we seem to be persisting on a path of domination, extraction, and violence. So what do we do when faced with uncertainty and instability? We step into our responsibility as the people of this moment. We become the people of transition. Those who learn to navigate uncertainty with the vision, values, and ways of being of a brighter future. As people of transition, we take responsibility for creating a bold and powerful and hopeful vision for the future. We reclaim our right and responsibility to imagine and to usher in the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, to quote our friend Charles Eisenstein. Fear is convenient. It renders us immobile. But hope is powerful, hope is transformative, and hope is actively shaping a better world ahead. And that is what today is all about. It's about exercising our duty to hope, our duty to dream, and our duty to imagine. It's about reconnecting to a North Star and reminding ourselves of what we need to navigate towards it together. And I'm so honored to help guide us all in that practice alongside Arturo and two of this nation's most visionary people, Stacey Abrams and Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. But as people of transition, in order for us to craft a bold and powerful vision of the future, we have to begin by acknowledging our past. We have to understand deeply where we've come from in order to know where we are going. So we begin by acknowledging that we are gathering here on land once stewarded by the indigenous Munsee Lenape people, in accordance with the belief that land cannot be owned and that, like all beings, we humans belong to the land and not the other way around. They named this island Manhattan, meaning the land of many hills, and we acknowledge that the majority of the Munsee Lenape people were forcibly and violently displaced from this land by European settlers and later Americans, who introduced the concept of land ownership as a form of domination and engaged in extractive practices on this land. We acknowledge that while these tragic events led to the displacement of most of the Munsee Lenape, that they are still here and still interact with this land as their homeland. Settlers later enslaved thousands of Africans on this land, and as a result, New York State was in fact home to the second largest enslaved population after South Carolina. The subjugation of land, dispossession, genocide, and enslavement made possible an economic engine that has contributed greatly to the wealth of the United States today and to the climate crisis we face. So we acknowledge the resistance, perseverance, and bold imaginations of all of our ancestors who fought to transform life for all people, to create a society more loving, more regenerative, and more interdependent. And even acknowledgement is no good if we do not reckon with it and with the continued lasting impacts of colonialism and enslavement on our present. So we reckon as well with the ways in which the world views wealth, institutions, and systems of colonialism persist even until now. We reckon with ways in which systems of domination, extraction, and violence continue to shape so much of our reality. We reckon with the intertwinedness of global oppression, ongoing genocides, militarism, and the extreme extraction of natural resources that fuel an extreme economics of inequality and accelerate climate change and result in climate disaster. We reckon with the fact that it is all connected across time and space, and in the same way, our ongoing struggles for freedom are interdependent, and we join together in solidarity and in a collective assertion that all life is sacred. Therefore, as people of transition, in order to usher in a brighter future, we now claim responsibility for repairing the harm caused by a culture of domination, extraction, and violence. We act to return stewardship of land to indigenous people and to return stolen wealth to the descendants of enslaved Africans. We act to repair the harms of colonialism everywhere it has touched. And we know that we cannot necessarily undo what has happened, but we can and must do everything possible to make things whole for the sake of our future on this planet. This precious space and time was made available to us due to the generous support and commitment of a few organizations whose missions are shaped by bold visions of a brighter future. So we're going to invite our partners at Concern Worldwide and Oatly to share a few words about their vision.
Please welcome the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Concern Worldwide US, Katie Waller.
Thank you so much for all of those words, and we are really excited to be here to talk about our climate future. So let me tell you a little bit more about Concern Worldwide. At Concern, we are on a mission to end extreme poverty, whatever it takes. And we know that climate change is one of the biggest drivers of poverty today. Today, we are here to imagine what better futures can look like. So when I imagine a better future, I see a world where communities have not only adapted to climate change, but they're thriving in harmony with the earth. In this future, I see sustainable practices being part of everyday life, food systems that are not only secure, but flourishing, providing for everyone without exhausting the land, and communities that are no longer destroyed by extreme climate shocks. What strikes me most about this future, this vision that I have, is the interconnection. People working together, leveraging future technology and traditional knowledge to regenerate the environment. There is this palpable sense of hope in this vision and possibility in every corner. And the most beautiful thing about this, these aren't just dreams for the future. They're already happening today and every day in the work we do at Concern Worldwide. Now you might be thinking, an organization that focuses on conflict and hunger in some of the toughest situations in the world, that doesn't sound like a place where I'd go looking for this sense of hope. But I've had the privilege of working firsthand with communities and our teams around the globe to do just that. So let's talk about a few. In Malawi, Concern's team partners with a collective of women from the informal settlements of urban Lilongwe. Here, we're seeing how producing renewable energy through waste management enterprises is transforming communities. So what these women are doing, they're taking uncollected waste in their communities and transforming it into biogas, which is a source of clean energy, and organic fertilizer that they sell to earn an income. The result is communities with a reduction in emissions and deforestation as they shift away from burning wood and charcoal. More employment for women, more environmentally friendly. This is part of the vision. So now let's move to Kenya, and particularly the arid and semi-arid regions where Concern's team is partnering with farmers, again, many of whom are women, to produce food locally. Now at Concern, when we speak about locally produced, this isn't a preference or something that's trendy. This is how these women produce food to survive in some of the most climate-affected environments that are either completely dry from drought or submerged in water from floods. By using techniques like climate-smart agriculture and nature-based solutions, these women are regenerating the land, and they also really are farming sustainably in these harsh climates. They're producing enough food to feed their communities, but they're also producing enough to earn some additional income. So you may be noticing a trend here. When the environment is prioritized, people also prosper. So I want to leave you with this. We don't need to wait for the future to see these changes take root and come to life. Every day, we're making strides towards a more resilient, equitable future through innovation, collaboration, and the incredible imaginations of the communities we partner with across 26 countries globally. But we can't do it alone, so please scan the code. There was a code. Code is gone to turn your concern into action. At Concern, we're actively seeking partners and collaborators, so please do get in touch, go to our booth afterwards. It is amazing to see so many people in this room, and I know by harnessing this energy we have today, a better world is ahead, and we can turn this vision into reality. So thank you so much.
Please welcome Global Co-Lead of Sustainability and Senior Director Sustainability for North America for Oatly, Dr. Julie Cunin.
Thank you. It's a privilege to build on the words that we've already heard this morning and to talk not only about this moment of transition, but potentially this moment of transformation. I work for a company. Companies are sometimes thought of as the problem and not the solution. Most companies claim to contribute to a net zero world by focusing on reducing their negative climate impact, trying to make something that's bad for us slightly less bad. But this is not enough. The world needs climate solutions to replace the current carbon-intensive options that we have. This is particularly important in the food sector, where Oatly is, because the food sector contributes roughly 1/3 of global greenhouse gases, overuses natural resources, and doesn't even meet the nutritional needs of most people. But, and this is especially true for food, what people want in their lives are products that are tasty, that are nutritious, that are fun, that are cost-effective. When most people make food choices, they're not necessarily caring actively about the climate in that moment. But can we have both? Can we have delightful foods that are less impactful than current market choices? We absolutely can. For example, my company, Oatly, is the world's original oat milk company. We invented it. Yeah. Thank you. We make delicious and nutritious oat milks that are also climate solutions. And that's not just my words, that's not just me shilling for my company. There is an emerging framework and criteria developed by the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, which now clearly defines both climate solutions products and the companies that make them. To be a climate solution product, it must be at least 50% less impactful than business as usual in the category, the thing that it is replacing. And that delta has to increase decade over decade. ERI has now confirmed that our drinks are climate solutions. They are already at least 50% less impactful than the average product in the milk category. We're not stopping at 50%. We're committed to increasing our ambition, matching those targets decade over decade, even as we know that the category business as usual will also improve as our competitors make their own climate reductions and plant-based foods represent a larger share, which is definitely something the world needs. So in short, the world needs more climate solutions. But what do companies like Oatly need in order to scale them? First, we need policies and regulations that support the transition to climate solutions, rather than the outdated regulations that were built for another era and support a food system that is broken. Second, we need climate frameworks and reporting that work for high-growth climate solutions companies. They may have to allow for short-term emissions increases. They should focus on intensity reductions, emissions per unit of the product you are delivering. They should be more holistic than simply the impact within a company and encompass, for example, avoided emissions and the collective holistic impact that a company is having in the world, both positive and negative. Third, we need customers and investors to acknowledge that the checklists they currently use, like having an SBTI or a carbon neutral claim to assess suppliers, doesn't work for high-growth climate solutions companies like us. And finally, we need more challenger companies disrupting the status quo with climate solutions in all sectors and consumers who are knowledgeable enough to choose these products over the alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So, we know we have a right and responsibility to imagine. How many folks have already purchased Dr. Johnson's book, What If We Get It Right? Yeah, let's give a hand to those early adopters of climate solutions. Everyone else will have a chance to purchase it later, and I'll later on send you where the books are. But the book is filled with inspiring essays and imaginings on climate futures from a collective of brilliant and soulful people. And the invitation to you today is to actually join that collective, to articulate your own story of hope for the future of our planet. So to begin that, we're going to do some collective imagining of our own right now. Is everyone ready? Yeah? Okay. We're going to create kind of a hope cipher and do some daydreaming together. So first, I invite you to get really comfortable in your seats. And the thing I've learned about guiding groups of people in imagining the future is that imagining is, in many ways, a kind of a sacred and prophetic practice. It's kind of in that liminal space of like meditation and daydreaming. If you remember what it's like to daydream as a child, if you still daydream now, that's dope, that's beautiful. So it's not just about like creativity as a cognitive process, but about creating the conditions to see what is not yet here and to see it in vivid and specific detail so that it can guide us. So I invite you to get comfortable in your seats. Let yourself sink deep into the comfort. Let that seat really hold you. And if it's available to you, let your eyes close or allow your gaze to soften slightly. And I invite you to bring your awareness to the pattern of your breath and just notice your breath. Don't judge it, don't rush it, don't slow it down, just notice it. Bring your awareness to it. Just notice how it is. And I invite you now to take a deep breath and release it with a soft sigh. And we'll take another deep breath in and release with a soft sigh. Let's take one more breath together, in and release. And as you continue to breathe deeply at your own pace, I invite you to bring your awareness to your body, if it's available to you. And we're just gonna notice and check in with our bodies, beginning with our toes, if that's available to you, your legs, your midsection, your back, your shoulders, your neck, and your head. And the invitation is to just check in with how are you feeling really. Checking in with what part of you needs attention, what part of you might need a stretch, where you might be holding some tension, or where you're feeling great. And as you continue to breathe deeply, I invite you to bring your awareness to your senses. So just notice what you might be smelling, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, if these are available to you. Check in with your emotions. How are you feeling today, right now? And as you continue to breathe deeply, I invite you to bring your awareness to your heart, to your emotional space, checking in with what emotions are present, and just noting without assessment, without judgment. And if it's available to you, I invite you to allow yourself to slip into what I call the imaginal space. And maybe it's that familiar daydreaming space where you just let your mind wander. You have permission to let your mind wander. And as your mind wanders, I invite you to remember yourself in a place that you love, a place that has held you lovingly. I invite you to remember why that place feels so important, so precious to you. Remember what this place feels like, what it looks like, what sounds remind you of this place. Who do you remember being with you there? And as you're taking in and remembering this special place, notice that there is a train station in that place, not too far away from where you are right now. A train is approaching. It's a beautiful train, like nothing you've seen before. And the train comes to a stop right in front of you, and you are invited to get on board. You don't know where the train is going, but you feel a yearning to find out. You get on the train, and it travels at a very high speed for what feels like 5 minutes. As the train begins to slow down, there is an announcement. Next stop, 2075. 2075, you ask yourself. Is the train moving through time? How is that possible? As the train comes to a stop, you recognize that you are actually in that same place that you love, the place where you began the journey. But so many things seem to have changed. As you disembark, you are eager to explore. You catch a glimpse of a screen with a ticker headline that says, "Celebrating 40 years of the Florissants, a new era of regeneration and reintegration with the earth." As you disembark from the train, you look around, eager to explore what clearly seems to be a future world grounded in regeneration, interdependence, and reintegration with the earth. A Florissance, an era of flourishing. You look around and take a deep breath. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What does it feel like to be in this era of flourishing? What does the landscape look like? Paying closer attention to what people are doing here, what new relationship to the earth seems evident? How are people relating to each other? How is the Florissants being celebrated? And what new rituals and ceremonies commemorate our new relationship to the earth? As you pay even closer attention, what values seem to have shaped this era of flourishing? What is now of utmost shared importance? You see another screen sharing what must be the news of the day. What new stories are we telling about our role as humans? What are our shared stories of our relationship to other beings? What headlines do you see that affirm the era of flourishing? What new ways of being have emerged during this era? How are we spending our time? How are we embodying this flourishing? What new structures have allowed for the stability of the Florissants? What systems ensure that all are flourishing? What technology supports this shared flourishing? How are we educating ourselves now? What does work look like? And how are we now stewarding the Earth's resources? How has the Florissants impacted migration, economics, our food systems, trade, and so on? So you have questions, you get someone's attention, and they miraculously happen to be a climate historian and know everything about the period leading up to the Florissants. You ask them for some time, explaining that you have traveled from 2024, and they understand. You ask them, what transformation occurred to allow the Florissants to emerge? What collective leaps did we make? What did we do differently that we hadn't done before? What changes did we make between 2025 and 2045 to make this era of flourishing possible, inevitable? How did our dreams for a brighter climate future become realized? You hear a noise, a signal that it is time to go back to the train and return to 2024. You're understandably sad to leave, but also excited to share what you've learned. You have the opportunity to take with you one artifact to share with others about the Florissants, to show them that we indeed have a bright climate future and the measures we can take to make it real. Your artifact might be an object, it might be a practice or way of being, it might be a story. So you get back on the train, basking in your experience, transformed. Having experienced the brighter climate future firsthand, you are eager to share what you've learned with everyone else. And that's what we're going to do. So I invite you to slowly open your eyes, perhaps taking a few deep breaths just to support your transition back from 2075 to the present. And just take a few moments to formulate your idea of the artifact in your mind, the artifact that you're bringing back with you. And we're going to turn to a person that you did not come here with. So someone near you that you haven't met yet, or maybe don't know as well. And the invitation is to share about your artifact and its context within the aspect of the Florissants you imagined. So turn to someone. I know some folks are going to turn to the people they know. That always happens. It's fine. And we're just going to take a few minutes to share your artifact. Make sure as you share the artifact itself, share the context of it as well. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm so jealous and I want to hear about some of these artifacts. I kind of want to ask a few folks to just shout out your artifacts, if you don't mind. So, anyone, just let me know. Like, solar panels. Say that again? Yes, pig salmon. Thank you. I heard solar batteries. What else? Collaboration stone. Love that. Go on. Say that again. Can people in front of folks in the back repeat what they're saying so we could hear? You know, like we used to do this during Occupy. Remember? So can you say what you said again, and then someone will repeat it who's closer and so on until we all hear it? Someone said a blue something. Blue cake? Okay. No, I'm just super curious, you know, like I want to know more. Beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. And, you know, as we, continue to discuss, hopefully we'll share more. There's another chance to talk to someone. You could talk to someone new. You could continue your conversation with the previous person. But the question now is about us. So who are you becoming that will help make this future real? Or another way to think about that is, what is your desired role and way of being in cultivating a beautiful, brighter future? You could use the artifact to guide you. So you could be like, I'm the keeper of this artifact, and that means X, Y, Z. But who are you becoming? What is your desired role in making this imagined future real? So we'll take a few minutes. Maybe you think about it a little bit, and then turn to someone and share. All right. I would love to hear who some folks are becoming or what your desired role is. And this time, let's definitely, again, try to support each other hearing. So if someone says something way up in the back, we'll repeat it until I can hear it. All right, anyone wants to share? Just shout it out because I can't see you. Yes, ma'am.
One, I feel like everybody around here are already doing it. They've already become that thing. But it all is around women.
Mm-hmm.
Women being in control.
Mm-hmm.
Not control. Let me take back that. Having more power to
Yes.
create a collective world.
Yes, beautiful. So for folks who couldn't hear, women having more power in determining our collective future, our collective world. Thank you. Anyone else? Teacher. Beautiful. Healer. Communicator. Weaver. Travel solver. Problem solver. Thank you. See, we're doing it together already. I'm sorry? Re-greener. Yes, I love that. Planting life. Say that again, I'm sorry. Not letting go of those places. I feel like that we were just at, exactly, not letting go. That's a beautiful place for us to transition. That really inspires me. Before we get to our keynote, I know why you all are here. You're here for Stacey and Ayana. We're going to hear from two more amazing change-making supporters who have supported this event. So let's give it up for our friends and partners at the World Wildlife Fund and Dream.org.
Please welcome Marcine Mitchell, Senior Vice President of Climate Change at the World Wildlife Fund.
Thank you so much. It is so great to be here and share this stage with partners and visionaries like Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson and Stacey Abrams, who we'll hear from in just a few minutes. Thank you, Aisha, for walking us through and leading us through that great visioning exercise. For me, my vision of a better world, of a future world, is one where we all have cleaner air and eat healthier food, where we can spend more time creating versus consuming, where we build a new economy based on green jobs, and a world where we have a new relationship with nature and where we care for our environment the way our environment cares for us. I believe we can get to this future, and I want to talk to you today about the things that we need to do to get there. As we envision a brighter, more resilient future, I want to focus on how a post-fossil fuel world offers the best opportunity for economic growth and improvement in our lifestyles. To move to this better world, we need three big changes to make in our society. First, we must change the way we power our lives. We must stop burning fossil fuels and transition to renewable energy. And then we need to take that renewable, clean, affordable energy and electrify everything we can. Our cars, our homes, our businesses, our industries. When we stop burning coal and gas and oil, not only do we get cleaner air and less emissions, we unleash the next generation of clean energy jobs and entrepreneurs. And I bet today, sitting in this very auditorium, there's one of the business icons of the new clean energy transition sitting right here amongst us. If we do it right, transitioning to a clean energy economy can create more wealth and opportunity for middle and low-income Americans than we've seen since the New Deal in the 1930s. This is a massive change for our economy, but it's one we're already investing in. In 2022, the Biden administration passed a group of laws, which I call the Clean Energy Bills, which has opened the gates for more investment in infrastructure, in clean infrastructure, than in the last 50 years. And the laws are designed for at least 40% of the benefits to go to communities that are traditionally underserved or have overburdened by pollution. Second, we need to change the way we consume. We've grown up in a society which conditioned us to extract and consume and throw away. It's unsustainable. We are building toward 10 billion people on this planet by mid-century, and the Earth cannot support that level of consumption. We need to build circular economies that reward those who take innovation and to produce, to reuse, and recycle the goods that we need. And finally, we need to change our relationship to nature. Right now, over half of the emissions that we send into the atmosphere are absorbed by the oceans and the land. But nature's not a given. We need to invest in conservation and protect biodiversity so that nature can continue to help us solve the climate crisis. We also need to reform how we use land and produce food. Agriculture and farming animals is the biggest cause of deforestation and the loss of nature. Instead, when we bring nature in as an ally, not only does it help us address the climate crisis, it also helps us protect the ecosystems that provide the water, the food, the shelter that we need to maintain a living planet. We have a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it. But to get there, we must first replace fear with hope, cynicism with determination. We cannot back down. We cannot give in. We must celebrate every inch of progress that we've made towards our vision. And we are making progress. While we are not where we need to be, we must appreciate that in this United States, 40% of the energy we produce today is clean energy. And if we can do that, we can have 100% in the next 10 years. A few years ago, Stacey Abrams gave a speech on climate action in Georgia. And she said, and I quote, "The reality is that the environment is not fixing itself, that wishing does not make it so. We have to act. It is our obligation to take power and fix our climate and save our world." And she's right. We need to take the visions of the future that you just created with Aisha and empower them with action. Let's harvest all that anger and frustration and fear and anxiety that we all feel and turn it into our own renewable energy to build these beautiful visions of a new world. President Obama once said, "We are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last to make a difference, to do anything about it." So let's make our legacy that we dreamed a better world and then we worked to make it happen. Thank you.
Please welcome Climate Investments National Director of Dream.org, Jacqueline Omotolade.
Good afternoon. And to my West Coast folks, good morning. You made it. I am Jackie Omotolade. I am Climate Investments, the Climate Investments National Director at Dream.org. And first of all, in my cultural tradition, there's something called call and response. And since we have been in the business of dreaming this morning, and Dream.org knows a little something about dreaming, when I say we can, I want you all to say dream. We can. Dream. Oh, y'all got to do a little bit better than that. You had your oat milk this morning, so you're good. We can. Dream. One more time. We can. Dream. Exactly. And we can dream. And that is one thing at Dream.org that we are phenomenal at doing. Dreaming about a world beyond poverty, beyond pollution, and reimagining criminal justice. And I say that because we at Dream not only speak and walk the walk, we talk the talk. We are part of the communities that we set out to represent. And particularly in my work in climate investments, which we know there has been a large influx of funding around the climate and how do we protect it. But we also know that if we are not careful with that funding, then we will just replicate the systems that existed in the past. We can talk about, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I come from a legacy of the Heinz, the Fricks, the Mellons.
the big families that helped build America, but also helped exploit it. And if we are not careful, the new green economy can do the exact same thing. And so when we think about this moment, and we think about where money is going, and a lot of money is going to a lot of different things, we have to remember that those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. And what can we do to uplift and center their voices and make sure that their priorities, their needs, their wants, their dreams, the folks who couldn't make it in New York, right? The folks who don't have those budgets, how are we including them and bring them to this process in a way that is meaningful, that is dynamic, and that's going to change systems? Because if we dream, we need to dream big. We need to dream, we need to make sure that we bring everyone into those dreams. And so I'm very proud of the work that we do at dream.org to make sure that we are building an inclusive green economy, not just for some, but for some of the most vulnerable populations, both in the US and beyond. So again, if you want to join me in that, I want to say we are, what are we? I can't hear you. We are, right? And we'll be back in New York on October 16th. Feel free to join us at our gala at the Plaza. And check out our website, dream.org, because we are doing amazing work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcine and Jackie. Thank you again to all of our amazing supporters, the World Wildlife Fund, Dream.org, Oatly, Concern Worldwide, and Nia Capital. And thank you to everyone here for co-creating futures together with these partners and with each other. And thank you, of course, for your patience. We are now going to hear from two people with enormous imaginations and the will to put their visions into action. Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson is a marine biologist, policy expert, and the author of What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Futures, which was just published last week. She co-edited the best-selling climate anthology, All We Can Save, and co-authored The Blue New Deal, a roadmap for including the ocean in our climate policies. Stacey Abrams is a political leader, small business owner, New York Times best-selling author, and senior advisor to Rewiring America. In 2018, she was the first Black woman to become the gubernatorial nominee for a major party in the United States. She has dedicated her career to voting rights, environmental justice, and economic empowerment. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage, Ayana Elizabeth Johnson and Stacey Abrams.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
This is such a treat.
It
The
is.
vibe is so good. Thank you.
Well,
Oh, Stacey's really giving it to me here.
well, okay, because we're all here to understand what if we get it right?
What if?
Yeah, which you should get at your local bookstore now. Once we're done, don't do anything now.
Also, notably, publishing tomorrow, Stacey Abrams' new book, Stacey Speaks Up, for all the kids in your life, children's book. Happy publication week.
Thank you, and happy second week.
Yeah.
And now our commercials are over. First of all, we're so excited to be here with you, and I'm going to ask you, when you were writing this, and when you were sick of the words that you were writing, when you kept writing, it was because you had a vision. What was that vision that you want this group to not only internalize, but proselytize?
Well, first of all, I'm a masochist for editing, so I didn't really get sick of it. I was like, how can I make it better and like more clear and more distilled and like shorter? It's a thick book, but I cut and I cut and I cut and I cut and I cut. And the thing that I was trying to get across was we basically have the climate solutions we need. There's not like a big mystery about what we need to do, right? We know we need to go to clean energy as fast as possible, and we have the technologies to do that. We know we need to shift our transportation, invest in public transit, right? All of those things. High-speed rail, for the love of God, can we please, in this country? We know how to green our buildings. We know how to improve our food system. We know how to protect and restore ecosystems and take advantage of the magic that is photosynthesis, right? It's not like we have to wait for some Silicon Valley to like come up with some cute new app and then we can all get to work. Like we could just start now. And so the thing that I was trying to get across was, we have all these visions of the apocalypse in pop culture, right? We have the what if we get it wrong. We have, the fire and brimstone and all of the news reporting on climate disasters, but there's very little about what if we get it right? Like, what are we working towards? Like, what should I run towards? Like, show me that's not just a scary void, but like, this is worth the effort. So this, I guess, is my answer to my own question, like, show me it's worth it.
So how do you know?
How do I know it's worth it?
Yes.
I talked to like a lot of really smart people and they were like, it's worth it. So this book is basically like 20 interviews, a bunch of co-authored chapters, commissioned art, poetry. It's basically like my mixtape for climate futures.
She's not joking. There's a playlist at the back.
So the best thing that happened backstage was Stacey approving of my first song choice on the mixtape. Which is, for those of you who have the book, has anyone checked already to see what's the first song in the back?
Okay. We won't sing it.
We might.
We could.
All seven and we'll watch them fall. They stand in the way of love and we will smoke them all with their intellect and their savoir-faire. No one in the whole universe could ever compare. I am yours now and you are mine, and together we'll love through all space and time, so don't cry. One day all seven will die. Did not have that on my bingo card, but I think that was a win.
Big ups to Prince. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so that's the thing, right? Like, we could do this climate future stuff however we want. It could be a spontaneous sing-along. It can be what, like, we get to decide how we're creating the future. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what is the thing you're most excited to go from, like, this vision and, like, reel it into reality?
So for a lot of folks, my journey in climate has been opaque, if not invisible. But I grew up in Mississippi. I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico. I was in a debate team we were the only debate team in the southern half of the state. So it was easier to debate in New Orleans than it was to debate in North Mississippi, which meant we would travel every week to New Orleans and Shreveport and Baton Rouge, and to get over there, we often had to drive through an area referred to as Cancer Alley. And as someone who grew up in a community that was often overlooked by politicians, but always found by those who did not have our best interest at heart, there was nothing to me more crystallized than the lack of concern for a community that had been so trapped by petrochemical plants that they had a national moniker that presaged their death. I mean, just think about how you have to popularize something that you would call it Cancer Alley without irony. And for me, it's embedded in my belief about democracy. Democracy doesn't exist in the abstract. Democracy is about how do we leverage our collective responsibility and our collective vision to make something better. And so I actually, in college, I wrote my senior thesis on environmental justice. I worked for the EPA, for the Environmental Criterion and Assessment Office in North Carolina.
I worked for the EPA Regulatory Analysis and Policy Division,
See,
so equally
there
exciting
you go.
office name.
EPA, #1 in titling. So my vision is that we move this out of voting simply because climate action is something we need, and we vote because it's something we want, and because we know it is a transformative space that gets us all of these other things. That if we are climate voters, we get highest speed rail. If we are climate voters, we get clean air and clean water. If we are climate voters, our children grow up with lower rates of asthma. And that we connect the dots between democracy being fully realized and our right to have political leaders who believe in the whole of us. And that can be accomplished if we have these conversations, because we can get it right. We've seen it happen. We have seen political leaders have these moments of clarity and courage. And so my vision is that we are creating more and more of these moments by getting more and more of us to demand it, not just at the federal level during a presidential election, but at the state and local level, at the zoning committee hearings, at the city council meetings, at the school board meetings when they're making decisions about who they're contracting with, that we embed our right to a democratic space that includes the right to breathe and build and believe. And I think that can be done. And so I think we get it right when we start to connect the dots between our democracy, not democracy as an abstract, but democracy as a tool for getting what we deserve.
I'm curious, this is a question I get asked a lot right now, is like, what would you say to climate voters who are like, meh, like not inspired about this election for whatever reason? I personally find that unrelatable, but there are apparently a lot. I'm very deeply motivated. I think there are, like, you know, I think it would be reckless of me, for example, to do a book tour in September and October of 2024 and not turn it into a Get Out Vote initiative. So I'm working with Environmental Voter Project, and I'm working with Lead Locally that supports these down-ballot climate candidates that you're talking about. Like, we need these city council seats. We need these public utility commissioners and port commissioners and mayors, et cetera. But for people who are not really, like, feeling inspired as a climate voter right now, do you have, maybe you all are, but I'm sure you know people who are like, you know, oh, show me the detailed plan. Like, I don't believe that there's really that much of a difference. We've all heard this. What do you say to these climate voters who are like, I don't buy it yet?
We often characterize climate voters as the granola crunching, this is the only thing I talk about, think about. I have not touched plastic since 1987. My point is, climate voters, if you go outside, if you cook, if you bathe, you are a climate voter. And we have to stop treating the climate voter as an esoteric third and treat them as an everyday reality. Our job as prophets, our job is to connect the dots. People vote on what they need. They vote for people who will give them what they need, and they vote against those who will deny them what they need. That's a really stark choice. This is not a partisan space, so I will let you figure out which choice you should make. But up and down the ballot, I have 3 words: Inflation Reduction Act. You think the EPA titles things poorly. Like, the Inflation Reduction Act is a transformative, multi-billion-dollar, multi-year opportunity to create
hundreds of
billions of dollars. And what excites me about this, and what I tell folks, is that you don't have to vote for a candidate you like. You need to vote for the world you want, and the family that you have, and the thing you want tomorrow. Because you can clap for it. Okay. That one of the challenges is that we expect this purity of intention when we talk about climate voters. I don't need purity, I need participation. Purity means you have to agree with me on all things, and if you haven't done the things that I think if you don't have a compost bag in your home, you're not really a climate voter. No, that's not the point. Do you have lungs? Do you want a heat pump so that your bill goes down? Do you want the small business that's down the street from you that could hire your nephew to be able to access some of these dollars? That's what this is. And so for me, it's a very clear connection, but we've got to make the connection. People don't wake up thinking about it. And as the more informed, our job is not to lecture, but to connect. And so that's
to welcome,
why exactly.
I think. I mean, that's how I sort of come to describe, like, my role in all this as a welcomer. Like, we need as many people as possible working on climate solutions, right? We need to build the biggest, strongest team.
I mean, you began with urban oceanography as sort of this frame for why you do this work. When you think about the next phase, regardless of the outcome of November, whether Armageddon is nigh or not, when you think about what is your practical vision for what we do next?
Yeah, you mentioned Urban Ocean Lab. So I co-founded this policy think tank for the future of coastal cities because basically cities aren't ready for the impacts of climate change. And there's a lot we could do to change that, right? We can adapt to the changes that are already here and coming. We can become more resilient. And so my team at Urban Ocean Lab, we crunched the numbers, and it's something like one in 5 Americans live in a coastal city. And the demographics of that are not the coastal elite, right? It is 60% people of color. It is a high proportion of people living in poverty. It is a high proportion of renters, many immigrants. This is something that affects like regular, everyday Americans if we don't have a plan to deal with sea level rise, if we don't have a plan to deal with how are we going to develop offshore wind energy in a way that actually benefits coastal communities like Cancer Alley, who are dealing with all the bad stuff of the fossil fuel industry. How do we make sure they get some of the good stuff too in this clean energy transition, right? And so I'm like a policy nerd at heart. I very much look forward to like disappearing into the woods of Maine in 2025 and just writing lots of nerdy memos that like maybe 20 people will read, but they'll be like the right 20 people, right? And so that's what's really exciting to me. And the big project that we're working on for 2025 with Taproot Earth, who I hope a lot of you know about. And also with a coalition group called Climigration Network, and also with NRDC, is building this coalition, this consortium of organizations that are thinking about climate-driven relocation. Because something like 13 million Americans are gonna have to move just because of sea level rise within the next few decades. And let me tell you, we do not have a plan. America does not have a plan for this. And so we're building this consortium of organizations to put out our own policy platform, a consensus platform, to say, like, this is how we think the framework for that should look, because we really, like, this is us having to envision the future where we get it right on climate-driven relocation. Because if we don't think that up, like, who's to say that ever becomes a priority for the government to deal with that in a proactive way, right? There's obviously stuff happening, but we from the outside can nudge and offer what we think that should look like, our detailed list of policy recommendations, and then sort of advocate for those in a way that's so much stronger than if Urban Ocean Lab did it, like doing that as a coalition project. So that's, the next version of biting off more than I can chew. So I'd love to talk a little bit about like the electrification of it all. So I was so excited when you became a part of Rewiring America, when you were like, I'm all in on this electrification thing. And as you mentioned before, to some people this was like, what? Why? Climate? Had no idea. And so we know climate and democracy are like inextricably linked, our ability to get anything done there. But I'd love to hear from you, just like, what are you focused on with Rewiring, and like, to the extent that you can reveal a little, like, what's next as far as that collaboration?
So I'm honored to serve as a senior advisor to Rewiring. I had a little bit of time on my hands after 2022. And so when I was looking for the next phase, it was of a piece. One of the reasons I stand for public office is that that is a platform that allows you to have dramatic impact on multiple issues at once. If I don't get those jobs, though, my responsibility doesn't suddenly disappear. And so I'm always looking for how can I leverage what I do to accomplish the things I think need to be done. And Rewiring was the perfect opportunity. It begins as a conversation about electrification, but we all know that more than 40% of our carbon emissions come from decisions we make at our home or around our home. So if you're going to tackle the climate crisis, looking inside the home is critical. To your point about communities that are on the margins and they're too often left out, if you have a gas stove in a poorly ventilated rental apartment, you face a climate catastrophe in your home. If you live in a rural community where natural gas is plentiful, but your pension is not, then the gap is just as wide as the gulf. And so what Rewiring does is really think about how do they close that gap? How do they make certain that electrification and the resources that are embedded in the IRA get to the communities that need it? And so I came on board. I've been part of developing what we call demonstration projects across the country, including in a tiny town in southwest Georgia, because it's me, called DeSoto, where we've been working with a rural community to help electrify every single one of their homes. Because,
we get a little. It's a big deal.
It's been quite amazing because these aren't the people you think about. When you think about electrification, when you think about climate action, you don't think DeSoto, Georgia. But what we found is that it's part of how you create the conversation. And there was an elderly woman who we were going to be working with in a few weeks, but around Christmas time in 2023, I get a phone call that she's been living without hot water in her home for almost a month, that she's going across the street or down to the gas station to get hot water. And because she was older, it was just getting harder. And we're like, we can go ahead and get you your water. We can get you a hot water, a heat pump, water heater. And we installed it, and it changed her life. Each time we do this, someone's life gets better. And what I'm so excited about with Rewiring is that we are connecting the dots between climate action not meaning sacrifice, but meaning success.
Yeah.
When
I love how Rewiring uses the term upgrade.
Exactly.
I'm like, this is an upgrade.
This is an upgrade.
I got a heat pump hot water heater. It's awesome. Electric cars, also really great. I mean, everyone owning their own individual car is not the answer, et cetera,
Okay.
but they're great.
I'm from the South. It's in our contract.
And I will say, for the Inflation Reduction Act, if anyone's a homeowner or knows a homeowner, there are major
Yes.
tax credits in there, and people do not know about it. So tell them. I know Rewiring has a great tool.
If you go, exactly. See, commercials all the time.
I'm here for it.
Thank you. Yeah, if you go to rewiring.org, we actually have tools that help you plan, help you understand what you're entitled to. Because of the GGRF, which is another greenhouse gas reduction fund.
I usually know the acronyms,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that
When
one.
you're spending hundreds of billions of dollars, acronyms multiply. So GGRF is, it's billions that were given out, 27 billion, and the consortium that Rewiring is a part of, which includes Habitat for Humanity, United Way, Enterprise, LISC, and Rewiring America, will be deploying $2 billion across the country over the next 7 years to do home electrification with a very specific focus on low-income and developing, so LIDAC communities. I'm excited because what this means is that this is not going to be money that just goes to the people who already know where the money is. Mm-hmm. But it also will go to contractors. And part of my mission, both through the work I'm doing with Rewiring and a separate project that I've started, is how do we make sure that it's not just big general contractors who get these jobs. This is a business opportunity. This is an economic development opportunity. And that matters because if you want people to believe they should do something, show them how they too will benefit. And we tend to have this sort of reflexive, well, if it's about making money, it's not a good idea. If you want people to be engaged, let them know they're helping solve a problem like, oh, I don't know, rent or food or education. And so thinking about how contractors become part of the aggressive way we deploy this money is also how do you create more vocational opportunities for young people who aren't going to college and don't have to go to college, but are going to have to take care of themselves and their families. This is a way that they can build skills that we will need for generations. And so I see this role with Rewiring, the work that we're doing with power-based energy. These are two very real opportunities to build this community that believes not only in climate action, but climate success. And I think that's what you talk about so beautifully, which is, what if we get it right is about what if we succeed? What can we imagine for ourselves next? And I know you all just went through this this imagining session, but I think you live in that session every day.
I try to. I mean, one of the people listening to you say that reminds me. So there's 20 interviews in this book, and one of them is with Jigar Shah, who is the head of the loan program office at the Department of Energy. And he's got $400 billion that he can loan, not grants, to for-profit companies that are developing clean energy technologies to help them get to market. And he's like, this is all great. Like, there's great stuff coming. We do not need to wait to get started, though, but like, there's more good innovation coming in the future. I promise you, I'm seeing it. But also, we need like 1 million electricians. We need plumbers. We need pipe fitters, right? We need carpenters. We need people to literally build the future, right? And the solar installers and the wind turbine people, right? Like, and so I think the vocational piece of this is critical. And these are like good jobs, often like very well-paying union jobs, right? And making sure, again, that like the people who got screwed by the oil and gas sector in terms of pollution or, you know, the wages they were able to earn in that are really benefiting from this transition is like, that's the just transition piece.
And you've got small contractors who are not going to, they're not general contractors. They can install a heat pump. And you've got electricians who need to know that someone's got to upgrade the electric panel so the heat pump doesn't blow up the house. And you've got an HVAC operator who
This is a very serious gap. People are waiting like 6 months a year to get a heat pump.
And that's assuming they will come to your neighborhood. So one of the problems we learned to solve in DeSoto was that we couldn't find anyone locally to take on this responsibility. And I'm so proud of Rewiring being willing to lean in and do this work. But now we've got to solve it across the country because this is a real economic opportunity, especially for women, for people of color, for rural communities to build real businesses that serve the public and serve their need to make money. And it's not about, I talk about it this way, not everyone's going to be a millionaire, but we can have a lot more thousandaires in America. And so how do we use the IRA to create more thousandaires? Because those thousandaires who come into their own because they are promoting clean energy will keep wanting clean energy. So you create, and you are creating your own universe of acolytes because they make more when we do better. And that's the rewiring model that I think is what you imagine. It's what we all have to, when we think about our vision, it's how do we make it easier for people to do good? And you can do good and do well at the same time. And so let's think about what all of those pieces look like, because when we accomplish that, we survive. And that's kind of cool. I want to live. I really do.
So when we were backstage chatting, I mean, we sort of, I think, I realized we were kindred spirits when I asked you about hope.
Yes.
I have a sort of tenuous relationship with hope. I'm not a fan of hope. I was like, we always both get asked about hope in literally every speaking thing we do. It's like, how did you get into this work? What gives you hope? What's your self-care thing like? And we both promised each other we wouldn't ask each other these questions. But I do think it might be interesting to say why you're not like, yay, hope. Like, why don't you love hope?
I'm going to get you. Hope hurts. Hope is a fantastic device that is incredibly painful when it is dashed. And as someone who works in voting rights and its polar opposite, voter suppression, someone who believes in democracy as a tool for making people's lives better because I think poverty is immoral and economically inefficient and solvable, hope is a great motto. It is a poor organizing tool. Because when someone's hope is dashed, you have lied to them. So I don't do optimism or pessimism. I do determination. It's a very Stoic philosophy, which is that I can only be measured by my effort. And I can only judge my outcome by what I'm willing to commit to. And so I don't do hope or optimism or pessimism. I am determined. My corollary is that I'm an ameliorist, which is not a word.
So relieved it's not a word.
Not.
I was like,
so I took the word ameliorate years and years ago and decided I'm an ameliorist. Ameliorate to mitigate challenge. My shorthand is, I think the glass is half full, It's probably poisoned, though. And so my job is to find the antidote. Not to worry about how full the glass is or to worry about what the poison is. It's to make sure that when the problem happens, I'm determined to solve it. And so I don't do optimism, pessimism, or hope. I do determination. You go.
Very similar answer, slightly different words, right? I'm a scientist. I'm
No
a
poison?
realist. I'm not an optimist. Like, I've seen the scientific projections. I've seen enough about how humanity does not actually get it together and collaborate delightfully to solve problems together, right? I know that we have, though, innumerable possible futures, right? It depends what we do. What we do determines the future we get. And so you use the word determination. I'm just like tenacious. Like, what else can I do? Who else can I bring into this? Like, is there another way? Like, bang down the door, crawl through the window, climb down the chimney. Like, what are we doing? And like, how can we have a reserve so deep that when we hit these setbacks, we're not like, oh, well, I tried, and then give up. And a lot of that to me is like who I work with. Like, I do not work with jerks. Like, I have the luxury of choosing my collaborators, and I'm like, this work is hard enough without assholes around me. So if you have this luxury.
So kindred spirit, my business partner and I, when we first started our company, one of our rules was we don't work with jerks. It was the other word, but yeah.
Sorry.
Like, we
Sorry,
fired
Grist,
clients.
Mother Jones, Rewiring America. I will keep it tight for the rest of these 2 minutes. But I think for me, it's like this incredible writer, philosopher, Terry Tempest Williams, I ran into 2 years ago in the lobby of some big climate event. And I don't know how. There's something about people who don't like hope who instantly find that out about each other. And she looks at me and she grabs my shoulder. She was like, thank God. And I was like, you too? Okay, great. Like, why? And you know, she said to me, she was like, I wish people would make their vows to something deeper than hope. And I just want to offer that to you. Is it love? Is it truth? Is it courage? Is it solutions? Is it community, right? Like, what is the thing that you can like really commit to, even though the odds are impossibly long that we're going to get it all the way right, you know? And so I'm just also like, we don't get to give up on life on earth. Like, I don't need hope. I need like an action item. I need a strategy, I need collaborators, I need a good playlist. I don't need someone to be like, it's all gonna be okay in the end, because like, that's bullshit.
What she said. Well, we are near the end of time. I want you all to help me do something, though, before we go, which is please help me thank the ASL interpreters who are gonna be doing so much. And I'm going to take a point of personal privilege to tell all of you that I am determined that you will all go out and buy my friend's new book because it is what we need to do. And if you want her to continue to be tenacious and to fix everything, because I'm going to take a nap.
In November. We all nap in November.
But I just want to thank Rewiring and Mother Jones and the New School for having us. And
Grist.
And Grist. And I want to encourage all of us. I'm going to give a call to action. I want you to do one too, which is it's election time, but do not lecture anyone. Now is the time to connect the dots. Find 5 people that you know aren't planning to vote. And don't tell them, oh, you have to vote to save the world. Ask them what they need. Ask them what they're afraid of. And then help them figure out how casting a ballot might mitigate that harm. Mm-hmm. Because people want to know you care about their lives. They don't care about your politics. But they can't hear that if all they hear is you telling them that it's their fault they're in the space. Mm-hmm. So if we can do that, there are enough of you here. I know we're in New York, so there's some outcomes that are a bit of a given. So I'm not telling you just to talk to the people you know where you live. Find 5 people, no matter where they are. And make sure you listen to them, and make sure you get them to go up and down the ballot, because much like, downloading an app, all the devil's in the details. So we need people to go all the way to the bottom because that's the only way we're going to get to the top. Go.
I mean, Stacey Abrams giving me the last word, no pressure. I would just say, if you don't know where to start with that, join me in volunteering with and supporting Environmental Voter Project and Lead Locally. They're doing phone banks, door knocking, texting, all this stuff every day from now through the election to build the environmental voting electorate so that we can not only elect politicians who get it, but so that we have a strong enough and large enough constituency that they feel like they have to legislate that way once they're elected to office. Yeah, this is it, folks. Let's do it. Do you have a song you want to leave with? I mean, we set such a high bar.
And I know I'm a good enough politician to leave it there. Thank you all.
All right, 1 second. I have a few closing notes. All right. So one last big thank you to Stacey and Ayana for such an insightful conversation. I know, yes, let's give one big thank you. I know I'm leaving here deeply encouraged, knowing that we have no shortage of vision for our future and no shortage of solutions for how we get there. All we need now is the power, and that takes all of us. I want to extend an enormous thank you to our supporters, the World Wildlife Fund, Dream.org, Concern Worldwide, Oatly, and Nia Capital for making today's event possible. Yes. And I want to remind us that Ayana's book is right downstairs in the New School cafeteria. So grab a copy and continue exploring your visions for a brighter future. This event was presented in partnership with Grist, Mother Jones, Rewiring America, and the Tishman Environment and Design Center. So an enormous thank you to the Tishman Environment and Design Center and the New School. And here to send us off finally is the director of the Tishman Environment and Design Center, Dr. Ana Isabel Batista, and the president of the New School, Joel Towers.
All right, I know everybody wants to go, so I'm going to close us out, and I'm extremely proud to be a producing partner here with our guests. And our center's mission is really grounded in a vision that calls forth environmental justice, a world free of racism and balanced with nature and with care and respect for all beings. And this year marks the 10-year anniversary of the People's Climate March. Some of you probably marched here in New York City 10 years ago, led by frontline grassroots leaders and many of our students, and we took to the streets then to demand climate action, and we need to do that again now. The environmental justice movement has seeded for decades and nurtured deepening our democracy. Okay, so they have been there all along, and this marks a pivotal moment. Right now, we have to muster all our determination, all our tenacity to build that better world. At the Tishman Center, we are doing that with an amazing group of environmental justice movement fellows. Some of them are here in the room today. Raise your hand if you're an EJ movement fellow. All right, meet these folks. They're doing the hard work of building and dreaming and doing all that work that we heard about today. They're doing it in their communities, in their territories, and tribes all across this country. And we are following them and accompanying them and supporting them in this 2-year journey as fellows. And also, I just want to say, let's put environmental and climate justice on the ballot this November. Okay, we want to vote for environmental justice. Nationally, locally, and we have an online campaign, Environmental Justice is Democracy. You can join us on our hashtag EJIsDemocracy and add your voice to why environmental justice is an integral part of our democracy. And please check out, this was an amazing event. We have another amazing event, Thursday, 6 p.m., Grassroots Power. You're going to hear powerful stories of grassroots leaders on all of these climate solutions. So please join us. It's with Climate Justice Alliance, the National Committee for Responsible Philanthropy. So please come out again and join us. And now I'm just going to introduce our good friend, founding director of the Tishman Center and new president of the New School, Joel Towers. Then y'all can go home.
That's it. I'm what stands between you and leaving. Thank you, Anna. As she said, I was the founding director of the Tishman Center. I can't tell you, almost 2 decades ago when we started the Tishman Center, to think that an event like this would be possible, it's almost unimaginable. It has been such a joy to be here today. Ana Baptista and the whole team at the Tishman Center deserve the credit for today's event, but I want to call out Michelle DePass, who's sitting right here, who was the director of the Tishman Environment Design Center after me and before Ana, and it would not have been grounded in environmental justice in the ways that it is without Michelle DePass. I also really want to thank our speakers today. What a dream to have Stacey and Ayana on the stage today, and Aisha starting us off. This was an incredible opportunity for all of us to see and to dream and to be tenaciously determined. That's how I'm leaving this room, tenaciously determined to live up to the promise that they have put in front of us, and I'm so proud to have gone from the director of the Tishman Center to the president of the New School, where we are centering this work across the entire university. Stay in this space. This is where the future is. Thank you very much, and go out and vote.